Hello, YouTube. We're back on Kotaku, and we have a post here by Luke Plunkett. Dad hacks Zelda so Link can be anyone, not just a boy. Because, boys are dirty and ugly, and they have cooties and stuff. Who wants to be a boy? Jeez. Reader Tony has a young daughter who, fingers crossed, will soon grow up to play the classics. But probably not, because, they all star boys. And when she moves on to The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, he's got a little surprise waiting for her. Oh, I bet he does. Aware that as a young boy he got to play through his favorite Zelda games as a young boy, Tony, inspired by Kenna W's Zelda Saves Link hack, has dug into A Link to the Past and replaced every instance of Link's male pronouns with gender-neutral language. Oh, getting in there and making the big changes. Is this the 2016 localized version? Just in case his daughter wants to do the same thing. I remember picking up video games as a kid, and I know people are going to be like, well, you're a male, so you didn't have to think about the lack of gender options when you were a kid. But I call bullshit, because some of my favorite games starred really awesome female characters, such as Super Metroid, Final Fantasy VI. It never occurred to me to say, gee, I sure wish this character was a boy instead so I could truly enjoy the game. He's putting his own ideals, and I get that's what parents do. When they raise a child, they put their own ideals into their kids. But he's making it so that he's under the assumption that his daughter is going to care that Link is a boy. And I mean, if we think about the game A Link to the Past, I know it's been some years since I've played it, but I don't think there were that many mentions of Link being a boy, or at least not that many gendered pronouns aimed his way. It's a fairly simple flip. Since Link's graphical appearance in A Link to the Past is fairly androgynous to begin with, Tony says, the only aspect of the game that needed to be fixed was all of the in-game dialogue referring to Link as a boy. So the big master hacker here just left the graphic absolutely the same. Didn't bother to put any work into it, and just said, hey, I'm going to go through the dialogue and change words around. That's all he did. This is not a hack. You are a hack, Tony. I combed through all of the in-game text and replaced every instance of Link's male pronouns with gender-neutral language. To prevent introducing any bugs or glitches in the game, I had to use words with the exact same number of characters. Boy and son were easily replaced with kid. But I had to get a little creative in other instances. Since I couldn't replace he with she, I went with the Old English ye, which I think works in the context of Link serving as an avatar for the actual game player. So he turned the dialogue into Old English randomly in some places. That's going to flow well. It makes absolutely no sense. Oh, look, a gender-neutral Link to the Past. Male protagonist, 1992, North America, released by Nintendo. Hey, you're not allowed in the castle, son. Go home and get some sleep. Gender-neutral protagonist, 2016 ROM hack. Hey, you're not allowed in the castle. Kid, go home and get some sleep. Well, I'm convinced that the world is saved now. I mean, who could sleep at night knowing that this game decided to use gendered pronouns and gendered language for the main character who was created by Nintendo as a male? So why gender neutral and not gender swapped, since the game was originally conceived for his daughter? Because in making the hack available for everyone, it's for everyone, not just his daughter. Well, all these social justice points to you. I believe that the public conversation to date on gender swap video game hacks has left out the transgendered community and others whose gender identities are more complicated than the simple binary male or female, Tony tells Kotaku. Look, I thought, call me crazy, but I thought transgendered people, their whole thing was they want to be the opposite gender, or they feel like they are the opposite gender of their sex, their biological sex. So why wouldn't male or female work? But no, now, we have to say, oh, we need gender neutral language because somebody somewhere in the world might see someone referred to as son or boy and cry about it. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Look, I want to make it clear, because apparently you're not allowed to have opinions on these things, that I'm not saying this shouldn't exist. I'm not saying it necessarily makes me angry that it exists. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not a necessary change. If you feel that you need to play a game where you relate to the main character through their sex or gender or whatever the hell the term is anymore, choose one that was created with that character that matches your desire. There's enough games out there. People act like these games never existed back in the day, but they did. Like I said, start her off with Super Metroid if she really wants to be a girl. Start her off with Final Fantasy VI if she really wants to play as a girl. Hell, go back even further and start her off with Phantasy Star. Because that's a game where the main character is female and it's apparent that she's female. In my gender-neutral hack of A Link to the Past, although Zelda remains female, the protagonist character of Link controlled by the player, and whom the player is supposed to most closely identify with, is completely gender-neutral and can embody whatever gender the player brings to the game. The player doesn't bring a gender to the game. Unless it's a game where you create your own character, there is no need to insert yourself into the game. This is just a pointless thing. And the thing is, this is the kind of hack that doesn't even take any real work. It's so easy to go into the game and change the text. I could go and do it, and I have no programming knowledge whatsoever. There are plenty of hacking tools out there that allow somebody to go into a game and change the text. He should have put a little bit more effort into it if people wanted to take it seriously. But no, Kotaku has to go and post about this because this is progress in 2016. We're making those gender changes that really need to happen. And the first comment is just ridiculous. It's by the author of the post. Why? I don't see the point. Cool, bro. Oh, well, that's a great answer. So basically, just because somebody may not blindly agree with this decision to make this hack and make it a huge public deal through the power of Kotaku, then that means we just write it off by saying cool, bro. No discussion has to happen here. I like that somebody corrected him and said cool, kid. That was actually kind of funny. So here's the post from the person that did the hack themselves, and I hate even referring to it as that because they really didn't put much work into this at all. Because thinking back on the game, I don't think there were that many instances where they even used gendered language. I'm going to read through this a little bit, but we're obviously going to come to some overlap in the things that were posted in the other Kotaku post, because much like they do in Kotaku posts, they go and through and they quote half the other person's writing and pass it off as a fucking article. Today marks the 30th birthday of The Legend of Zelda, a landmark video game released by Nintendo of Japan on February 21st, 1986. Over the past 3 decades, dozens of sequels and prequels have been released, while the games in the series implementing the same narrative formula. Link, the young protagonist, must rescue Zelda and save the world. My 6-month baby old... sorry, I'm flubbing my words here. My 6-month-old baby daughter isn't old enough yet to handle a game controller without sticking it in her mouth, but I've already started planning on her introduction, or is that indoctrination, to the big wide world of games. Unfortunately, many of the classics were hard-coded from a male perspective and feature male protagonists as the only playable characters. How is that unfortunate? Why would you teach her that it is a problem if something doesn't cater to you in absolutely every way? It's not a problem, okay? What it is it allows a person to develop outside of their comfort zone. Although I don't even think a child would have a problem with this. Children have really good imaginations, and you're kind of sucking the imagination out of life by saying, well, little girl, since you are a girl, I figured that we should make Zelda or Link or whoever at this point, we should remove any gendered language just so you don't have to think that Link is a boy. What's going to happen when she grows up, does a little research of her own, and realizes that she had daddy cater a game just to her. Meanwhile, everybody else is playing in a reality where Link is a boy. There are plenty of classic books and movies, all told from a male perspective, that my daughter will likely endure. Endure, as though it's terrible just because it contains men. But what makes the medium of video games unique is that it's technically possible to hack them to remove the gender bias and present a more engaging and empowering experience for the next generation of young gamers. Are you kidding me? Why? It's not a gender bias. They were created as a male character. That's just the way it is. Once again, how many times do I have to say that there are plenty of games with female characters and you can go and feel engaged and empowered with them? Even though, me being a guy, I've enjoyed plenty of games that star female characters, and in a lot of cases, I prefer playing as them. I think it gives I think it gives the game a different experience. You can play a game and be something you can't be in real life. I mean, you can't be a plumber that goes around stomping turtles in real life. So, well, I guess you could, but you'd probably be a psycho for doing it. But, so when you play Super Mario Brothers, you're having an experience that you can't have in real life. I was particularly inspired by Mike Mika's Donkey Kong hack that swaps the character sprites so that his daughter could play the game as Pauline, saving Mario from the clutches of Donkey Kong. I mean, I don't think that's something that's necessary, but you know what? At least work went into that hack. And it's kind of a funny thing, and it could provide some entertainment for somebody. I'd probably play it because I feel like, this actually took work to mess with the graphics. There have been similar hacks to flip the gender roles within the Zelda series. Mike Hoy hacked all of the in-game text in the Wind Waker so that his daughter could play as a female Link. But perhaps most impressive of all, Kenna W., a talented animator and retro game enthusiast, took it upon herself to right a wrong from childhood by hacking both The Legend of Zelda and A Link to the Past, arguably the best game in the entire Zelda series, which I would actually agree with, so that she could play the game as Zelda saving Link. I highly recommend both for patches, Zelda starring Zelda and Zelda starring Zelda 2. That title doesn't even make any sense, but let's not worry about that. The fact that she says it's to right a wrong from childhood, that is a little bit disturbing. I mean, who cares this much about the gender of fictional characters? This is where we're at in society. This is what's important to people. A Link to the Past is one of my favorite games of all time. In addition to Kenna W's character swap version, I wanted to create a version of the game that kept the original characters intact, but allowed for Link to be completely gender neutral. Okay, so here's some overlap. Since Link's graphical appearance is fairly androgynous, blah, 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 we had to fix the dialogue. Yeah, okay. So this is the part where he says he combed through all the text and replaced the pronouns. And now, a mere 24 years after the original SNES game was released, my gender-neutral version of A Link to the Past can be downloaded as a VCDIFF patch file, but due to intellectual property legalities, you will need to figure out how to obtain the rest of these in order to play it. Oh, man. Wow. This is just silly. I don't see why you would put these ideas into your kid's head instead of just letting them play the damn games the way they were meant to be played. They're extremely enjoyable, and if you pay this much attention to silly things like gender or gendered language, you're never going to enjoy anything. Why is creating a character and having them with a set gender wrong? Because some people, and people that would make up a very small minority of society, might feel bothered by gendered language. I'm sorry, but if you feel that gendered language is so offensive that you just can't look at it or it has to be changed, the problem is with you. You are weak of will. You are fragile. You need to deal with reality. You need to realize that the universe does not revolve around you. People do not create things to cater specifically to you. They create games to tell stories. If you can relate to something in that story, you should be able to enjoy the game. If you can enjoy the gameplay and have fun, you should be able to enjoy the game. So what if the main character does not share fictional genitals or fictional gender identities with you? This is sad and this is pathetic. And while I think, this guy has every right to create this, we have every right to criticize it. All right, well, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.